Hey guys, it's Justin Goodbread here with Financially Simple. So today is Thursday and we're dealing with our Shark Tank. As you know, on Thursdays, we're dealing with an Ask Justin, and I'm on this little mini series from a client's daughter actually, who asked her dad, so Dad, what about all this Shark Tank stuff? I've been watching Shark Tank and what does all this mean? So the client said, Justin, can you answer some questions for my daughter? So I like Shark Tank. It's a show. For those of you who've watched it, that appears on TV, and it's about business owners who are going to pitch these real estate moguls. No, not just real estate. Barbacan is real estate, but these very, very, very successful business people, right? So business owners are coming in to pitch the very successful business owners on investing in their business, and it's a little bit of sometimes it could be angel investing where they're investing into a startup style business, but most of the time it's what's called venture capital. It's where there's a business in place and they're trying to get an investor to come in and get some capital to propel the business into the future. I like watching Shark Tank. So whenever me and Miss Emily get away, as long as I can break her away from HGTV and Magnolia Farms, Joanna Gaines is like my wife's hero for some reason. Our whole house looks like Joanna Gaines built it. But whenever I can get Emily away from HGTV, then I'm able to watch Shark Tank. So I like watching Shark Tank. My nose is itching for some reason. Sorry about that. So on this particular episode, I was watching the other day, and I was watching on YouTube, and we're going to put a link down in the comments. As soon as the episode today's done, as soon as the live video is done, we're going to put a couple of different links in the comments. I'm going to tell you, check out the comments in a little bit. But in this particular episode, it caught my eye because it said $20 million business. I'm like, whoa, that's a lot of moolah. So I watched the episode. And so let me lay the stage, and we're going to put a link to a YouTube video on how this episode played out. But let me just kind of lay out the episode for you, and you go back and watch it, and I'm going to explain what happened in the sharks' minds. So a young lady walks in. I'm going to guesstimate she's probably mid-30s, maybe early 40s. She walks in, and she has her display of all the different products. And forget the type of product. It's like a food thing for kids. But she had a display of the products, and she comes into the sharks, and she says right off the bat, hey, sharks, I'm so-and-so with so-and-so. This is my company, and I'm looking for a $1 million buy-in for 5% of my company. That was her opening pitch. Before she got any further than that, all the sharks went, whoa, you're saying you got a $20 million business. Okay, this ought to be good. So how do they come up with that real fast? So if you take 100% or 100 divided by 5, that's 20. So 20 times 1 is, so you wanted a $1 million buy-in times 20 is a $20 million business. So when she said, I want a $1 million buy-in for 5% of my company, they did the math real fast and saying, this is a $20 million business. This is better be good. All right. So once she catches her composure, I mean, it caught the sharks off guard when they're asking for this much money. Once she catches her composure, then she starts showing the product. Guys, the venture capitalists didn't really give a flying flip about the product. They didn't care. They want to know the numbers. Whenever you come in asking for $1 million business, if I'm not my microphone, whenever you come in asking for $1 million for theoretically a $20 million business, you better have some data to back it up. So what happened is the sharks started saying, talking about your sales. Who are you selling to? Where are you distributing the product to? What patents? Man, we talked about patents last week. Go back and check it out. It's on YouTube right now. We may find it on Facebook somewhere. They ask, what patents do you have? Do you actually have patents, or do you have patent pending? That's what we talked about last week. Same reasons apply. And here she is getting fired out from all these different, I think there were 6 sharks on this particular episode, maybe even 5. 5 or 6. They're firing rapid fire questions at her. And she's like, oh. In fact, if you look at her eyes, she looks like a deer in the headlights. It's kind of, I felt kind of sorry for the young lady. But they're asking some very legitimate questions right off the bat. And what it comes down to ultimately is that the sharks are asking her, how did you calculate the value of your business? And to her credit, she gives a very good textbook answer. She says, well, I took my current sales and I pushed the current sales out for 5 years. hey, Danny, she said, I pushed the current sales out for 5 years, and then I ran a discounting factor, a 40% discounting factor to a net present value. And my calculation shows the business is worth $20 million. And so then the shark started saying, all right, how much have you done in sales? And she says, I have sold, I'm going to make a number, it's like $1.4 million. And then she kind of leaves and said, over what time period? The sharks are like, what time period? Are we talking about in a month? She goes, no, year to date. Oh, so you can start to see the sharks kind of backing up a little bit. And so what's happening in their mind is they're saying this company is not worth $20 million, but what's it worth? In fact, one of the sharks actually says, this company's not worth $20 million. It's not worth it. So in their mind now, they're trying to figure out what the true appraised value of the company is and how she extrapolated the $20 million value. So that's what they're asking. Now, the questions they're going to start hitting her with are very targeted, okay? They're going to be like, how much sales have you had? Are these patent pendings? We talked about that already. What stores are you in? Are you in all stores? Do you have signed copies? She said, I went to an international trade show. One of them says, did you actually take orders at the trade show? No. Oh, yeah. Then the young lady says, well, we can ship containers to Australia. They want to take a container a month. And Robert, I think, says, but you're not currently doing this. This is all futuristic in nature. What her biggest mistake is, her number one mistake, is the same mistake that every business owner just about deals with, is this. We believe our business is worth more than it actually is. That was her mistake. Now, she had a lot of optimism, and Barbara Condon, toward the end of the show, she's actually pointing out that your optimism is what's hurting you. But her number one mistake is she believed her business was worth more than it actually was. So what was interesting to me in this is this. They call him Mr. Wonderful. Robert, I forget who it was. Anyways, Kevin O'Leary says, I think it was Kevin, he says, I'll make you an offer. And everybody kind of looks at him like, what are you smoking, dude? This company's not worth $20 million. Here's what he says, though. He says, I'll make you an offer. You think that the company is on this trajectory. And she was painting a rosy picture. He said, I'll give you the $1 million for 5% of the company. I'll give you that. And everybody's looking at him like cross-eyed, like, really? Are you serious? And he says, however, if the company doesn't hit what you are projecting the company to hit, my stake in the company goes to 25%. Instantly, Robert says, do you realize, he looks at the young lady trying to pitch the sale. He goes, do you realize what just happened? Now, what Kevin did is, I've never seen it. It was unbelievably creative. So in the world of venture capitalists, we often will have an earnout, is what they'll call it sometimes, is where you, the seller, thinks the business is worth X, and the buyer thinks the business is worth Y. Okay, so the buyer will give some credit to the seller and say, you know what, you do have some pending transactions. I'll give you some credit. So I'll pay you this right now. And if these happens, I'll agree to earn out, or I'll give you a bonus. I'll give you a number of different ways. I'll put these in place to where now you can make more money. Kevin did was pretty interesting. He basically gave her what she wanted and said, now, is your optimism real? Is it truly effective? Okay. Because if she didn't hit what her goals were, that she clearly articulated, if she didn't hit what those goals were, then what would happen is Kevin would now have a 20% stake in the company. You see, Kevin was super, super bright on that. What he was trying to point out to her, which is ultimately what you see through this episode, is that number one, she didn't know the true value of her company. Number two, her optimism, thinking that, hey, I can grow the company this much faster, her optimism was going to end up harming her. She didn't catch it. She didn't catch it. In fact, Barbara comes along and she says, I'll give you the $1 million. I'll give you $250,000 or $200,000 every year for the next 5 years. But I'm going to open up this. I'm going to open up your market. I'm going to do this, that, and the other. The young lady turned it down again because she's like, no, you don't understand. My company is really, really, really valuable. So there's two things I want you to gather from this. Number one, she thought the company was worth more than it actually was. The venture capitalists sitting there, the sharks in this case, they realized that one of the biggest mistakes business owners make is we don't know the true value of our companies. We don't. We think they're worth more than they actually are. Number two is that we are often over optimistic. See, as entrepreneurs, I'm right there with you. I could charge hell with a water gun. That's kind of my saying. I really could. I could just, let's go get it done. Burn the boats. No one's going to stop me. Keep going forward. Barbara pointed out something very interesting. At the end of that episode, some of the wisest words I've ever heard that sharks actually give out, she says, whenever I started my business as real estate mogul in New York City, I could accomplish anything. And that's what many of us business owners think. We can accomplish anything. But she said, I was scared of my capabilities. I was scared of myself. So Barbara was trying to show her that you have too much optimism, and your too much optimism is going to cost you too much, and ultimately the business could suffer. Interestingly enough, I wrote in our podcast, financiallysimple.com. I mean, at financiallysimple.com under the heading podcast, we have all these journaled there. And we're going to put a little note in the comments section. So check the comments below for the links to these particular episodes on the podcast that we turn into a blog. Hey, by the way, check out the podcast. It's on Stitcher and Spotify and iTunes, all those places. And I deal with this stuff. But on the blog, and we'll put the links below. One of the things that this young lady, if she'd have done it right, and in hindsight, I'm really not sure she wanted a true buy-in. I think she was trying to do a national commercial for her, which is what I think. So she could say, has been seen on Shark Tank. But had she done this right, and should she truly have wanted the $1 million equity buy-in, she needed a pitch book. Think about pitching the baseball, a pitch book, okay? A pitch book is what we use whenever you're going to try to sell the company. And it has all sorts of contents in there. And it has a formulated thought process on where the company is, where it's been, and mathematically where it's going and why it's going to get there. What this young lady messed up on, she may have practiced her opening line, but her opening line was so dramatic that it pushed the venture capitalists into a position where they almost shut her off completely. It was too big of a number. And had she had done her pitch, had she had her pitch book ready to show them, not only to show them and give them data, which is what these VCs wanted to see. They wanted venture capitalists. They wanted to see her, see the data. And she was not articulated enough to be able to explain why she felt and mathematically why her company was not worth it, was what it was worth. She couldn't do it. And so had she followed what I already written about on the blog, had she followed that, she may have had a different outcome in that particular event, number one. Number two, because she felt the company was this big and the company, the venture capitalists thought it was this big, she actually experienced some retrades. She actually experienced quasi-retrade. She actually experienced some negotiations that she didn't understand how the negotiations worked. She didn't understand what Kevin was doing when he said, I'm going to throw this on you, and if the company doesn't go to where you're going to go, then you're going to end up having to own more equity in the company because he wants to get his value back out of there. Not one of those sharks dismissed that she had a valuable product. She did. She has an outstanding product. In fact, I probably should have looked at where it's at today. But she had an outstanding product. The problem is that she wasn't prepared. She wasn't prepared for what was coming her way. So today's lesson from Shark Tank, ultimately, number one, I want you to hear me loud and clear, business owners. Your business is not worth what you think it's worth. It's not. Most of the time, it's not. That's the reason why only 4% of people who actually sell their business are happy after they sell it, because we think it's worth more than it is. So we got to know what our true value is, number one. If you're in business and you're like, Justin, I'm not going to sell my business today, how do you increase the value? Hey, I'm dealing with that on the podcast right now. I think this week we're starting into leadership. It's going to start launching out this week. Check it out. It's how you can use leadership to build the value of your business. It's on the podcast, it's on the blog, financiallysimple.com, and it's also on the podcast. So number one, your business isn't what it's worth. Number two, when it comes time to sell your business, you better do your homework, folk. You better have your pitch book at least memorized so that whenever those questions start coming, as it did to this young lady, you can stand at that plate with a good, nice swing and whoom, crank those balls back out in the left field and hit homers off each one of those questions. She wasn't prepared. So guys, that's the lesson for today on episodes from Shark Tank. I thought it was a cool episode. It's one that I've watched a couple of times now. I liked it. I think it is intriguing, the real life things that we business owners can take away from a crazy little TV show, okay? Which we know they do a lot of dramatization, I think is the word on the show. But it's just a lesson you can learn. I don't know what's going to be next week. I got to watch the episodes, and honestly, I don't have time. So we're going to see how it works out for next week. Now, remember, tomorrow at 4:30 Eastern time, I'm going to be answering questions. All right. So this is your chance. If you're watching this tonight, drop me a question. You can email me at justin@financiallysimple.com. You can drop a question here in Facebook. You can shoot me a message on Twitter, on Instagram, wherever. I think we've already got a good 12 or 15 questions from just last week's episode. So I'm going to try to get them knocked out in about 30 minutes time. But if you have a question that you want answered, now's your chance. So the question that what everybody's trying to do is stump Justin. I may have one this week. You have to stay tuned to see. Until tomorrow, guys, like I say often, life is hard. It is. Life is good, and life can be frustrating, but money doesn't have to be. Let's continue to make our lives at least financially simple. Hey, like I mentioned before, check out the comments section for the links to what I was talking about in the blog post. Hey, guys, y'all go out and make it a great day.